Hi guys, this is Erica from Gokce Capital.
Now before I begin, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications. When I say the word eminent domain, you may have a frightening image in your head of a government agent coming to tell you that you have to leave your property since it is going to be taken within the next few days. However, in reality, this is not how the process often works. For example, we had a property that was in the path of a new utility corridor, and that was needed by the utility company for the construction of their new utility lines. And while it was possible that this property could have been taken through the use of eminent domain, the process actually worked out in our favor. And if you're curious how this is, I'll let you know at the end of this video. But in the meantime, even though condemnation and eminent domain are rare, and you may never encounter them, it's a good idea to understand how these processes work, and in particular, what the difference is between condemnation and eminent domain in the event that these become relevant to you as a landowner. So here are the top 6 things you should know about condemnation and eminent domain. First of all, eminent domain is the government's right to take over private property. And I think most of you already understand this, but this leads to number 2. Condemnation is the actual legal process by which private property is acquired for public use. Thus, eminent domain is the government's right to seize private property in order to use it for public use, and condemnation is the legal process used to actually seize it. Now, another thing you should know is that if your property is slated for condemnation, it may not be your full property that is taken. Sometimes condemnation is for a part of a property. For example, if utilities need to be run along your property, it may be that only a portion of it is required. In addition, condemnation can sometimes be temporary. For example, your property may be needed to serve as a staging ground for construction of public works. In this instance, the government may utilize your land only during construction and then return it to you. In addition, just compensation is required before your property can be condemned. Thus, the government or its agent cannot simply come in and take your property. A process needs to be followed, and compensation needs to be paid before the property can be taken. And as a general rule, just compensation is considered fair market value. And usually this is determined with an appraisal, although the exact requirements can vary from situation to situation and state to state. In addition, you have the right to dispute the compensation amount. So if you don't believe that fair compensation is being provided, you are entitled to your day in court. Thus, the public authority will usually first try to engage in good faith negotiations with you around compensation before initiating the actual condemnation proceedings. And in many circumstances, the public authority may even offer you an above market offer in order to ensure that the process is smooth and to avoid any kind of court proceedings altogether. However, if negotiations don't work, a landowner is entitled to their day in court if they are unhappy with the compensation amount. So for this reason, if you get a notice that your property is slated to be condemned, it's a good idea to speak with a lawyer, particularly one who has experience in eminent domain and who is local to the property. Number 6, there is a condemnation process that needs to be followed. And this can vary from state to state, but in general, the condemner is required to serve notice before they seize your property. So at a high level, the process will look something like this. You will receive notice that your property is to be condemned. In addition, or sometimes alternatively, you may receive an offer to purchase your property. So in some circumstances, before even receiving notice that your property is to be condemned, the public agency may reach out to you, perhaps even with an above market offer, in order to avoid court proceedings. But if negotiations don't work, then the condemner will file to acquire the property using eminent domain. And at this point, you can retain an attorney and contest the compensation amount. So it's important to understand the process and the rights that you retain if your property is slated for condemnation. And sometimes the process can work out in your favor. In fact, many landowners, especially those who purchase properties for investment purposes, specifically try to look for properties that may be in the path of infrastructure development or public works in the hopes that public agency will need the property at a later date for public use. Now, why would anyone hope that their property is listed for condemnation? Well, let me go back to my opening story. We owned a property that was in the path of a new utility corridor. and the utility company needed to run utility lines right through the center of the property. So the utility company reached out to us offering to purchase the property at an above market price. They stated that they liked to put in 3 offers with the property owner before moving toward condemnation, and they usually made an above market offer because they wanted a smooth and easy process and they did not want any enmity on the part of local owners. Thus, we were able to negotiate a price that was higher than what we would have received if we had sold it through our regular process. And this is precisely why many property owners like to invest in properties that they think may be in the path of public works. Now, do you have any stories about condemnation in eminent domain? Let us know in the comments. Did you like this video? You're going to love our Gokce land due diligence program. We'll make you a land due diligence expert in just 7 days. Check it out at gokcecapital.com/glad. And while you're at our website, don't forget to explore our $1 down properties at gokcecapital.com/listings. Finally, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. You can email, call, or text, and we will respond as soon as possible. So thank you for listening, and more to come.